Today, we'll be covering how to take your mix from this to this. Hello everybody and welcome back. Today we're going to be going through how I mixed this little rock idea. I actually posted a video yesterday about how I did the drums, how to get a drum sound quickly. So if you'd like to go through that video and how I mix the drums in a little bit more detail, please look at the link in the description. But today I think we'll go through sort of the entire production. I mean, it's not a very big kind of idea. The direction is sort of like, you know, new metal, alternative rock, bring me the horizon type of direction. So what I'm going to do is give you a little playthrough of the idea, and we'll be taking the plugins on and off, so I can show you, you know, how to go from sort of a sort of flat, lifeless mix to something that sounds really, really big and massive. So like I showed you in the intro, there's actually quite a lot going on that makes this mix sound a lot bigger. So for the drums, I'm using Get Good Drums. The kit's called One Kit Wonder Architects, and the preset is this Arena Filler. This is what the drums sound like without any processing. And with. Okay, so just a much fuller sound. I go into detail about how I mix these drums on my previous video, like I mentioned, so go check that out if you want a more in-depth kind of explanation. But basically, I have the waves, one knob on here, the fatter, just giving a little bit of drive. I have OTT at 17% just to beef it up. I've got some EQ taking out some of that lower mids and getting some separation in the snare, and a little boost in the kick there. And then after that, I've got a little bit of pool tech shaping on the EQ, so a little bit of a 1.5 dB raise at 30 and about the same at 8K. And then what else do we have? We have a little bit of a clipper, just cutting off some peaks. And then after that, a little bit of a crazy plugin, which I go into detail on my previous video of, you know, exactly how, you know, why I made the moves that I did on this drum sound. It's just mixed into 2% to just give a little bit of like parallel drive and squash. Okay. So yeah, what is the next element that we've got here? Well, obviously, I think we should start with the guitars. So I recorded these guitars. I played a little riff here. I've got two little sections. One is a sort of open string kind of little riff, and then it goes into a modulated type of riff here. Let me solo the guitars here. I've double tracked them. The first guitar I've panned all the way left. Second guitar I've panned all the way right. Got a little reverb here, and then I've got some stuff on the drum bus here. So yeah, let's start with the guitars completely unmixed. I'm going to take all the plugins off. And most of this processing is actually on the actual guitar bus. On the individual guitars, I have Amplitube. I'm getting the guitar sound from Amplitube, and it is the Engel. Basically, just I loaded this straight up, didn't make any changes. I literally just put on a tube screamer. It's the default amp, and I copied that to my second guitar channel, and I have that. That's the guitar sound. Also have a little reverb here that I've muted. I've taken off the guitar bus inserts. So this is what it sounds like unmixed. And I'm going to turn all of the processing on here so you can have a listen, then we'll dive into each one. I'm also just going to play you a little bit of this part where it goes into more of a progression. Okay, so doing quite a lot here. Let's go into what is on the guitar bus here. So first of all, I've got the Pro Q4 here. And what we're doing is some dynamic EQ in sort of like the mid range, and also just getting rid of a little bit of whistle in those high frequencies. So this is with it off and on. So really just taming the low mids here at like 272, getting rid of that 3K kind of whistle here. It just cleans the guitars up, and so we can raise the highs back after this and give it a little bit of brightness, which is what I'm doing here with the Waves SSL, basically giving it about a 4.6 dB boost at about 10K. Okay, so I'll just give you an idea of what that sounds like. I'll start with it off. And on. So we took away those annoying, whistle kind of frequencies that's in that range that really hurts your ear. And then we've just brightened it back up to so that I can actually compete with the rest of the elements in the mix, especially when we're listening to drum cymbals and stuff like that. Okay. Then next we have gain reduction here. Again, mix is only on 7%, just to give some drive, a little bit of compression, just to drive it even that, just a little bit more. So this is it off. And it makes a massive difference. And again, we're only blending in about 7%. So just giving it some drive and a bit of a lift. Sort of the same thing like we were doing on the drums, except maybe a little bit more aggressive. Okay, and then what have we got here? After that, I thought that it was good to bring up the highs with the SSL. It gives it a sort of a certain flavor, but to balance the guitars in the mix with everything else, I was just dipping out a little bit of 4,200. Okay, on the SSL plugin before here, obviously we were boosting a little bit higher at about 10K, and that just brought up a bit of those upper mids a little bit too much. So I wanted to just tame them a little bit. This is with it off. And on. I want to show you actually what kind of effect this has in the mix. I think it makes a big difference. I think without this little dip here at the 4K, I think it just pokes through too much. So I'll start with it off. It's just include all the instruments here. I'm going to start with it off, and then we can turn it on. I don't necessarily feel like it sounds bad with it off. I just think there's a little bit too much high in there, and we want to make space for other elements that we'll eventually put in, like vocals and things like that. Okay, just really important to make sure that each instrument occupies its designated like frequency spectrum. All right, cool. And then I've just literally got a little bit of volume automation on here because when we move from the sort of open string riff into the modulated chord progression parts, I thought that the chord progression part just was a little bit low, so I just raised it up there a little bit. And that's it for the guitars. Let's go through bass. It would probably help if I named this. Let me go bass. So first of all, what is the bass sound that I'm using? Let's have a look. This is from Omnisphere, and I just stumbled across this sound. Let's see where it's coming from. It's actually coming from Scoring Organic, and it's called under Guitars Vintage. It's called the Memphis Soul Guitar, and without any processing, it sounds like this. So I definitely think there's a couple of things we can do to improve. So the first thing that I've got going on here is just a little bit of EQ shaping, just cutting off the low rumble and getting rid of a little bit of those muddy low mids that can build up quite quickly. This is off. So nothing drastic, but just shaping the sound a little bit there with Pro Q4. Next in line, again, to beef the signal up, I'm just using a little bit of R bass. I think this helps the bass cut through a lot. I just felt like there was just two little sort of sub frequencies there. So I've just moved this to around 59 Hertz and just dialed this into taste. So this is off. On. You can really hear a big difference on that low C sharp. This is in drop C sharp, by the way. You can really hear the difference in the frequency response there that this, R bass is giving, just beefing up that low C sharp fundamental. Okay. And then next in line, we have a brick wall limiter. And again, this is just to level the signal out and just make sure that it is, as full as possible and that there's no spiky transients. I felt like there were just a few little transient spikes that I needed to tame down just with the brick wall limiter. And this is with it off. So again, nothing crazy going on there, just taming a few of those transients so that when it gets into the master bus, that, we don't overload compressors and our final limiter and things like that. Cool. And then the last thing I have on the bass, and this is to make sure that we get our kick and bass to work in conjunction with one another very, very well. And so what I'm doing is I'm using Shaperbox, of course, I'm side chaining it from Contact, which is my drum instrument. I'm using it in audio mode here, and if I open up the little audio toggle wheel here, you can see that in order for it to receive audio from my drums, I just have to click on this button here. And I'm filtering out all the high frequencies from the drum kit, of course, because I just wanted to respond to the kick drum. And the kick drum, obviously, most of the information lives in the low end. So I want this audio trigger from the low end of the kick to trigger this very, very fast envelope. I've put it on 1/8. And again, that is to just get the bass out of the way for that initial kick transients to make sure that, the kick comes through as punchy as possible, and also just to give some headroom. So let me also just unmute the drums here. We'll listen to the drums and the bass soloed. I'm just going to start with this off. So you can see this little orange box lighting up whenever it, whenever it detects a transient here, and I have it in the drums algorithm. And without it, the kick and bass are just clashing. And this just makes sure that for that split second of that kick transient, we just get the bass out the way, and it's going to make our drums just sound a lot more punchy. So that is it for the bass. Let's just do a complete off and on. So nothing too crazy, just adding some low information there with the R bass, just making sure the transients are under control, and then some sidechain. Okay. And then lastly, what we've got here is just a little melodic thing I wrote which gives us that, alternative metal, alternative rock kind of sound. Bands like Bring Me the Horizon use this all the time. And the preset I'm using, again, from Organic Scoring under String Orchestra. The String Orchestra, it's the Heavenly Pastoral Orc. I don't have much going on here, a little bit of OTT and EQ. This is what it sounds like without any processing. I know that in Cubase, I'm not sure why, when I click this, when I turn all the insets off, it says that OTT is on, but it's not on. The graphic there just seems to suggest it is, but it's not. This is the little element by itself. Yeah, so really just a background supporting element just to give a little bit of natural, cinematic variety to the track. And so that's with the processing off. And now I'm going to turn it on. So I'm really cleaning this up a lot, using some OTT here just to drive up some of those highs, just to get a little bit more clarity so that I can compete with the rest of the elements. And then I'm also just cleaning out a lot of those lows. I mean, when I turn this EQ off, you guys can hear a lot of that low end rumble. Okay, so just getting rid of a lot of that low-end rumble, just to get that out the way to leave space for the low-end elements in the mix, okay? And then lastly, what we can do is also just discuss what I've got on the master bus, which I think, again, just makes a lot of difference. I'm going to keep the limiter on here. This is like my favorite limiter of all time. Steinberg's done an amazing job here. But yeah, other ones I would recommend is Fab Filter, the AOM Invisible Limiter, also really, really nice. Let's go through what's on the master. I'm just going to turn off what we've got here. And let's start with the API. Again, a classic 10 milliseconds attack, fastest release. And I think we'll get about 2 to 3 dBs of gain reduction. This is off. It's doing a lot. It's just gluing everything together and just making everything cohesive. Love this thing. You guys can use the UAD one or any other kind of replica, but APIs on a master bus, the 2500 can't go wrong. And then we've got a little bit of the Greg Wells mix centric. Again, this just gives it a little bit of a scoop, widens the signal a little bit. This is off. So yeah, just sounds a little bit wider. Again, controlling that mid-range, which is really important. Next, we've got the pull tech here. Again, we've got about 1.5 dBs at 30%, about half a dB at 8K. So just doing some overall broad EQ strokes. This is off. Massive difference. I love this thing. A little bit goes a long way. And I feel like with this pull tech, again, just lifting up the stereo signal in the upper mids and the highs, really, really nice. And it's all just about making these little increments of just adding a little bit here and there. Goes a long way. And then next we've got the Ampex tape, master tape from UAD. I just whack this on default setting and it just works. This is off. This thing's mad. Again, just so much just glue, and it's just a massive lift, and it just gives you that extra 5, 6, 7% that maybe we were missing. So love this this tape saturation. And then lastly, we've got maybe a bit of a strange one. I think people use this a lot in electronic dance music and stuff like that. But literally on this track, just using, I've pretty much got all the modules turned off. I'm just using a little bit of this magic knob to just add a little bit of color. This is it off. So it's just giving us that last little like 2-3%, which is just like the the finishing touch. And then of course again, we've got the Steinberg razor limiter here on aggressive mode. Love this thing, so transparent. You can really smash it. I don't think I'm smashing it too hard. Well, by today's standards, it probably is. But it's probably like between 3 and 6. Let's have a look here. This is off. Really nice. It just tames those, those harsh transients, but doesn't lose any punch. I don't know how they've done this. They've done a great job. I think we'll just do one more final, A/B comparison with everything on, and then I can turn everything off. And yeah, let me know what you guys think. I think this mix just sounds a lot better, and I hope that there were some techniques in this video that will help you with your mixing and your productions. I try to keep it as simple as possible. Simple is always the best way. But yeah, these kind of techniques, just used, correctly, I think can make a massive, massive difference. So let's do one last A/B comparison. So that's it for today, guys. I hope you got something out of this. I really think there are a couple of things in here that will, help your mixes become better and just stand out a little bit more. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.